Hey, welcome back, guys. My name is Meshach, and in this video, I want to briefly introduce you to one of my heroes, a guy by the name John Woolman. John Woolman was a Quaker that he lived in the days right before the American Revolution, when slavery was still the engine that was powering this country. And I've been thinking a whole lot about him recently because even though he's not particularly well known, the approach that he took towards working towards the abolition of slavery made a tremendous impact on the people in his day, especially his fellow Quakers and some of his neighbors. And since a lot of people today are on a quest to be anti-racist, I thought that his life would be a perfect example of how to stand against racism, especially for those of us that don't have the fire or the platform of Martin Luther King Jr., but we're just everyday men and women, boys and girls. In fact, since I made a few videos on racism, white supremacy, implicit bias, some people have reached out asking what they can do. They likely felt powerless against the gigantic machine of systemic racism and the historical force that created it. So they're like, what can a normal person like me do in the face of all that stuff? Well, John Woolman was like that too. He was just an average guy, just a normal dude. And he grew up in a climate where racism was acceptable, including amongst many Christian denominations that still actively practiced slavery themselves. And when he began to see slavery as the wicked thing that it was, he started asking some of those questions that many people are today asking. What can I do about it? And since Woolman wasn't about to lead a movement, he didn't have the charisma for that. He decided instead that he's going to change his own participation in it. So when he said, what can I do? I'm going to change myself. And so what he did was any area in his life where he benefited from the labor of enslaved people, he just cut it out. This may seem like a small thing, but consider once again the days that he grew up in. Slavery touched every industry from agriculture to manufacturing. So to decide that you're no longer going to advantage yourself by buying wares that were made by enslaved people, that's huge. That's a decision that's going to impact all of your life, and people are going to notice. It also impacted his business because one of the things he did was help people write their last will and testament. But if someone came in trying to pass along their slaves to the next generation, he would not help them with it anymore. So he decided, I'm no longer going to advantage myself, nor am I going to help other people be advantaged by the practice of slavery. So as he's making these decisions to not be advantaged by the practice of slavery, soon enough, word spreads. People begin wondering why he's not buying produce from them anymore, why he's not using their services to get his shoes fixed, or why he's no longer purchasing equipment from them anymore. And soon enough, people would discover that he's chosen to stand against slavery by not participating in it anymore. And that all happened because he decided, I'm just going to change myself. I'm not going to worry about changing the world. I'm going to change myself. And while his approach didn't have a direct impact on the machine that was slavery, it did begin having an impact on individuals that were surrounded him. And they began to change or at least think differently because of his example. So here's one example of one situation in which something like this happened. One time in the fall of 1758, John Woolman was invited to speak at a Quaker meeting, and he decided to speak against slavery. At this point, his reputation has traveled with him, and people wanted to hear more about his stance. And since Woolman was kind of unassuming, he typically didn't offer his opinion unless he was asked. So generally, he only spoke about slavery when he was asked to speak about slavery. Well, after this talk was over, he was invited into the home of a man named Thomas Woodward. And the Woodwards, being gracious hosts, they had food prepared for him. They had a room ready so he could stay the night and relax. So when John Woolman arrives, he's hungry and he's tired from the long day, right? And as he's being led to his room, he noticed that the Woodwards had black servants who were prepared to wait on him. So seeing this and remembering the commitment he made to anti-slavery, he inquired about their status. When he learned that they were slaves, he didn't make a big fuss of it. He didn't ask the Woodwards, didn't you just hear my sermon? What are you guys doing? All he did was quietly excuse himself, go to his room, and then later on that night, after everyone was asleep, he packed his bags, wrote a note to the Woodwards explaining why he couldn't receive their hospitality due to the fact that they owned slaves. Then he went to the slave quarters, paid the slaves for their day's service, and walked into the night back to his home. Well, the next morning when the Woodwards got up, they went to his room and saw the note that he left. And Thomas Woodward was so convicted and inspired by the conviction of John Woolman that he set all of his slaves free that very day. So I think the same can be true of anyone who's trying to figure out how to be anti-racist in our day. You don't need to protest if that's not your thing. You don't need to make videos if that's not your thing. You don't need to be a public voice or a public advocate. You can just quietly decide that you're no longer going to be advantaged by or participate in known racist systems that help perpetuate racist practices against people of different colors. For example, you might decide to no longer watch certain news channels because of how they inaccurately present the issues of race in America. You may choose to not laugh at the racist jokes that your friends make anymore, even if you know that they're just kidding around and they're not really being serious about it. There are a lot of things that you can do to no longer cooperate with the existing evils of racism that are still very much present in our day. There are also things that you can begin doing to participate in the work towards racial justice. The point is, find something that's suitable for your lifestyle and do it. It's going to be challenging, even if it's small, but find something and just begin doing it. You don't have to have the stage of an MLK. Your life is your own stage, so find something and do it. And who knows, as you begin doing those things, without even trying to make your position known, people will inquire. They'll ask why you no longer watch that news, why you no longer laugh, and then there's your opportunity to speak about it. And I'm not even suggesting that protesting or speaking out publicly is wrong. I'm just saying that a lot of people don't have the makeup to do that. After all, the world needs all types, right? We need abolitionists like John Woolman and Harriet Tubman. And for those of us who don't have the makeup of a Harriet Tubman, I present to you John Woolman, the apostle of abolition. I encourage you to read his autobiography, read a lot of the letters that he wrote on slavery, because they're very, very wise and impactful and speak to some of the issues that we're still going through today. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and if you found it helpful, please like it and subscribe so you know of future videos that are coming out. And also share it with someone else that you think might appreciate it or be helped by it. Until next time, peace and goodness, guys.